Good morning. Welcome to the National Bit and Spur and Saddle Collectors Association YouTube page. I'm Charlie Kaupke, a director for the NBBSCA. Good to have you along with us. We're just going to take a few minutes here and share a little information about some bits that I've had in my possession for many decades that you might find interesting. But first off, here's a bit that if you look at the wear and the rings, very, very thin. It's an unmarked Mchesney, and it belonged to a friend of mine who's now passed, and it was his dad's bit. And he cowboyed up on the Chapman Barnard Ranch in Osage County, Oklahoma, where the Tallgrass Prairie Reserve is now at. But to see a bit with that kind of wear, you knew he didn't have many bridles in his tack room, and he rode this one every day. Another bit is a Crockett, pretty typical Crockett, but I find it very interesting because this was one I acquired in a very early time in my life, right there in the hometown of Bremen, Oklahoma, where I grew up. And the story that goes with this bit, that in 1949, a man rode out into the wheat field where they was thrashing, and his brother-in-law shot him out of the saddle, and he was using this bit. Well, years later, I was in the barn on that place, and there was an old dried-up saddle, and it was gone, basically, but it still had the blood from that incident that happened many, many years before. The third bit I want to share with you is a Mark Mchesney. The owl bit, always a very, very popular style. And this bit at one time belonged to Don Wilcox at Tulsa, Oklahoma. Mr. Don I got acquainted with in the 70s at horse shows. He was training reiners. He also had promoted a horse that became real famous named Big Step. But in his early days, he was a specialty act at many rodeos around the United States. He was a trick rider, a great horseman. But another great specialty act in that time was who they call Mr. Rodeos, now in the Hall of Fame, and that was Cecil Cornish. In the process, Don Wilcox had this bit. Cecil Cornish ended up with it. Well, Cecil was a family friend. In his last years, he lived next door to my grandmother. And I asked my dad, who'd known Cecil his whole life, if we could get possession of this Mchesney bit. So I've had it in my collection for years, and it's really special because these are two people that have so much history in the Western way of life as well as in the rodeo world. And being a Mchesney in itself makes it an important collector piece. So these are three items I want to share with you and give you a little provenance on. And we want to be doing more of these, so we encourage you to keep following the National Bit and Spur and Saddle Collectors Association on our Facebook page. We have a website as well as our YouTube page. And also, if you're not a member, we want to invite you to be, because we'll be putting out publications, a director's list. We have a scholarship fund. We have a crisis fund. So all of these are available to our members. We really encourage you to get a hold of us. And you can comment right here on this page, and we will see that we follow up on it. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.